now we're going to turn it over to the meat and potatoes. I'm going to bring up Garrett Brandt. He's going to introduce our guest and get us going.
Very good. I think I got a microphone on me right here. Good morning. Good to see everyone. We have got a lot to cover, but let's give a warm welcome to our esteemed guests, Bob Hale, President and CEO of NAR, and Gilbert Gonzalez, CEO of Sabor. You know, we had to really adjust some schedules for Gilbert in particular to be here and Bob to come in from Houston, so we really appreciate them being here. But let's jump into this. So I'm going to talk about what this NAR settlement is a bit about, and then I'm going to bring them up. We're going to go through some Q&As, and Bob's got some other stuff he wants to present to you, really cool stuff that you have access to. But let's talk about this. So first of all, I really want to tell you that the sky is not falling on this stuff. Yes, there is a change coming. Yes, we're in an industry where this is sort of feeling like an earthquake. But when you really boil it down, it's just going to make it slightly more inconvenient for you to get paid. Commissions are not going away. And we've been talking a lot about this. It's just going to be a different route for you to find out what you're getting paid and to confirm it. I'm going to go through some of that stuff with you. But the big thing I want to take away right now is the first word. This is just a proposed settlement. NAR and the plaintiffs agreed upon a settlement, but because this is a federal class action lawsuit, it has to go to the court and court has to approve it. That means all these other interest holders have a chance to weigh in on it. The DOJ, other brokerages, even the judge, they can all come back and either delay it, make some changes, reject it altogether. So when you have a client that says, oh, I hear I don't have to pay agents fees anymore.
Texting Rain and moving other patients from that week to move them the week before or the week after.
I really want you to understand that right now nothing structurally has changed, but yes, change is coming. We need to Now the earliest our changes are going to be is July. And the reason why is because that's what the settlement says. They have a court date, May 9th. That's the first possible date that the court will approve and adopt the settlement. So we're looking at May, and then they have a time period to change the MLS. So let's talk about some of those changes that are in the settlement. The first one is, if this settlement goes through, you will be required to have a buyer's rep agreement. Period. End of story. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But you should have been doing that pretty much anyway. And I know most people do get it, but oftentimes you wait until you write the offer to get that done, right? Hey, okay, we've seen 40 properties. You're ready to, here's a buyer's rep agreement. Not anymore. You're going to be required under the terms of the settlement to do it before you show them the first home. Now, this is both good and has some consequences to it. The good side is, they're signed up as your client and they should work only with you because it's an exclusive buyer rep agreement. The issue is going to be, or the concern is, you're going to have to talk about commissions right up front with that buyer. It must state the commission that you're going to get paid. You're going to have to get used to, as Steve would say, you're going to have to get used to having uncomfortable conversations. We're going to have to get really good at explaining our value to people and what we do. So you have to disclose the amount or rate of the compensation that you, the agent, will receive in this document, in this buyer rep agreement, and how it's going to be determined. It has to be determinable on the face of the document. It cannot be sort of open-ended. You cannot say, whatever the seller is willing to pay me. Nope, that's not going to work. It has to be an express amount or percentage. And the other thing is, you will not be able to get paid more than in your agreement. If your agreement with the buyer says 3%, and you go to MI Homes, which is a great builder, and they're offering an incentive to pay you 5% commission, guess what? You can only get 3% because that's what your buyer's rep agreement says. And that's exactly what the settlement says. Now, you know me, I'm a solution-oriented guy. I know how to bend these rules and even break them when necessary. I got two solutions for you on that. One serious and one kind of funny. The funny one is write all your buyer rep agreements at 10%. We're done, right? We're covered. Whatever they offer, you're going to at least get paid that, right? That's the funny one. We don't do that. The other thing is, what is a buyer's rep agreement? It's a contract. Contracts can always be amended. So you write your first contract, buyer, you're going to pay me 3%. You go out there, you find a listing agent that's offering a bonus or a builder that's offering a higher percentage. Amend your buyer's rep agreement before submitting that offer. Hey, you're not going to pay me 5%. The idea is that consumer probably going to say, well, wait a minute. Where's my share of that, right? And that's kind of what the idea behind the settlement is to allow the consumer more knowledge and understanding of how the commissions are, and of course, try and take some out of your pocket, but we'll talk about that as things go on. Agents cannot receive compensation for brokerage services from any source more than the amount. That's what I just covered. I probably should have said at the beginning of this, because I remember I did this at the 9 o'clock. This is just proposed. We're literally 6 days into this process, even though it feels like it's been a month and a half. We're 6 days in, so we don't have every answer to every question yet. We're walking this out. We just know where this is headed, assuming the court approves this. I believe the court will. There may be some tweaks, but I don't see the court or the DOJ blocking this completely, because we already have 3 big settlements, KW, Anywhere, and RE/MAX. They've already settled. So all of a sudden you get this coming in where the plaintiffs are like, hey, we're good with it. I don't see them standing in the way of this. So these changes are going to come in some format. The timing might be a little different. Offers of compensation. This is the other big one. These are the headlines that you are seeing. No more realtor fees. 6% is gone. They're saying that because offers of compensation in the MLS will no longer be allowed. You cannot look in the MLS and see what you can pay. No offers of cooperative compensation at all. The MLS actually has to eliminate all fields that would show the offer of compensation. So that SC and BC fields, they will disappear. And you cannot do elsewhere in the MLS or use a non-MLS mechanism, sort of an internet aggregator site like Zillow or somewhere else, to then put it out there either, right? It just cannot be in the MLS. I was asked in our first meeting, what about like additional documents? Nope, you can't put it there. You cannot put it in agent remarks where you would say, where only other agents say, hey, we're offering 3%. Nope, you cannot do this through the MLS on it. But one thing you can offer in the MLS is seller concessions. And seller concessions can pay for the buyer's commission, buyer agent commission, wholly or in part. The problem is we can't tie it to it. We can't put in to the MLS, hey, seller's offering $10,000 of commission that you can pay your buyer with. You cannot, your agent with. You cannot put it that way. You'd say seller's offering $10,000 in closing costs concessions. Then the negotiation comes between the buyer and the seller. Well, how much would pay my agent? How much is for my closing, right? So it's going to get muddy. It's going to get murky. It's going to be interesting, but just know that there are ways. But there's good news coming. Let's go through one more thing that we have. Well, let's talk about this. We can make offers of cooperation outside of the MLS or off the MLS. So if you have an off-market property that's not going through the MLS, fair game, or just do it outside of it. Nothing prohibits us from making these offers of compensation. We just have to do it outside the MLS. So you could do it by an email. You can mass email every broker in SABOR. You could pick up the phone and call everyone. You could text people. You can do it in a newsletter. Like, you can offer it. We'll talk about the seller side of this in a moment, but please be aware that whatever you do, please do it in a TCPA compliant way. Yes, you're calling an agent and saying, my seller's offering to pay you, but if they're on the do not call list, you still could get in trouble. I know that sounds crazy. I'm offering you money and you're turning me in. What? But that's the weird world we're living in. So please make sure all your communications are TCPA compliant. All right, before the listing agent can make this offer of compensation outside of the MLS, they must have it disclosed to them for approval in the offer, for any offer, in conspicuous language that stands out, like the big bold letter, seller, you authorize me to offer the buyer's agent 3%, like right there in that. So please, our forms are all going to change. This is not something that's going to be solved overnight, right? We are making changes internally. I'm actually producing some internal forms. TAR is going to have to change our buyer's rep. They're going to have to change our listing agreements. Things are going to change. It can be a little while, but just know that these are some of the things that are coming. Yes, Steve, real quick. Signage. Signage, well, if you're not offering compensation on your signage, I guess you could on your own signage. I hadn't thought about that, like in front yard signage saying a seller offering 2.5% or 3% commission. So let's save questions for a little. Or 4% commission. Yeah, really get them. Yeah, the MLS cannot require agents to be making offers of compensation or accept them as joining the MLS. And MLS cannot require that offers of compensation, if made, again, outside the MLS, that be blanket, unconditional, or unilateral. Right now, the offers of compensation are unilateral. If it's in there, you have to pay it, right? That's going to go away. You could, as a listing agent, require or condition things of that buyer agent commission. You could say you get 3% if it's a full price offer. You could say it's 3% if you show up wearing a pink tutu. Like, you could make whatever condition you want on it for the agent to get that. It's going to be weird. We're going to have to deal with this. We're going to have new forms that you're going to want that listing agent to sign too. But that's one of the interesting things. Now, here's some good news. Brokers can make offers of compensations on their own listings, on their own websites. Settlement doesn't even touch upon this. It's our data, our listings we can offer with the consent of our seller. So, being in a brokerage of the size of Heritage, we're already working on our new website where we're going to have data fields like this. So, because brokerages can offer it on their own website, you go and you find a property, and I see metric property, and I see it in the MLS. I can either call Matt and say, Matt, what are you offering buyers? Or I can go to the KW or his website and see what it's on his website or the KW website, right? So it's an extra step. It's not prohibited. It's just an inconvenience. All right, let's talk about this commission disclosures you have to make. You cannot tell, you shouldn't have been doing this anyway, but you cannot tell your client that you work for free or that your services are at no cost to them. This is one of the things they used against us at trials. They said, we have scripts from brokerages, and they actually pulled out a Keller Williams script that told buyers, like, this is at no cost to you, which is not true. It's never been true, but we're now not supposed to say it. So you shouldn't have been saying it anyway, unless you really want to work for free. I mean, if you're helping your Aunt Minnie buy a house and you're not going to charge her a commission, that's fine. You can say it to her. Just don't tell other regular clients, because that's not the truth. So you can't say that. Inconspicuous language, we have to have it clearly visible, disclose to the seller and obtain seller approval of any offer of buyer agent compensation. So again, our listing agreements are going to have to change. That has to be in writing, has to be done in advance, and it has to specify the rate or the amount. The seller has to specifically say, here's what I'm offering, 1%, $5,000, whatever it is, which is in our listing agreements anyway. Agents must disclose that the broker commissions are not set by state law and are fully negotiable. This is language straight out of the settlement. It's going to have to be on all of our listing, buyer rep, and other documents in the future. So the listing agreements are going to have to say commissions are fully negotiable, not set by law. Same thing in our buyer's rep agreement and in pre-closing disclosure statements if it's covered. Remember, this settlement covers all 50 states. We don't see a lot of pre-closing disclosure issues here in Texas that would contain this kind of a thing about commissions, but there are states that have it. So this is global. Just know that we're going to have more disclosures and more discussions about commissions, and they're going to happen at the first part of your meeting with your clients, whether it's a listing or a buyer. You cannot, and you should not have been anyways, if you did, should not be filtering properties based on commissions. You cannot discount to your client a commission that's a property that's not paying you what you hope to be paid. Remember, you have a fiduciary responsibility to the client. You're going to be signing a buyer rep agreement right up front, which means now you are their fiduciary. And that means you have to put their interest of acquiring a home of their choosing that fits their needs and budget ahead of your financial interest. You should have been doing that all along, and I think most everyone in this room is. We run a great brokerage here, but if you were wanting to hide a property, discount a property, restrict a property because they're only offering you 0.5% or nothing at all, and you know your buyer's not going to be able to pay you, can't do that anymore. And you're going to have a buyer's rep, which means you're in a fiduciary relationship. These are deep conversations you're going to have with your client. You cannot filter out or restrict listings based on the existence or level of compensation after this. So be mindful of your duties to your client, and they will be your client because you've signed a buyer's rep agreement. Now, an interesting little side bit on this is KW and KW agents are not directly released under this settlement. The main reason is we did our own. A few months ago, Gary Keller and them, they signed their own thing. So you still are released from seller litigation liability. Let me be clear on that. This settles all claims that sellers have for overpaying of commissions to buyer's agents. There's still a buyer lawsuit out there that one's going to be weird, but now, we're covered because KW has their own settlement. You're protected. You're not going to be held liable by any seller that comes back and says, oh, you forced me to pay that. So the settlement mostly changes the MLS and the practice and offering of commissions, right? That's the main thing. When the new rules do come in, whether it's this summer or a year from now or whatever, we're going to have to follow them because we're members of NAR. You guys are realtors, and you have to follow what NAR puts out there and in the MLS on that. All right. Some FAQs and do's and don'ts, and I'm getting near the end. I'll bring up these fine gentlemen here in a moment. Because it's just a proposed settlement, nothing has been decided, nothing has been finalized. Current situation is actually still the same. If you get a seller that says, oh, I heard we don't have to pay anymore, remind them they signed a contract, they signed a listing, they agreed to pay you a commission. None of that changes. The settlement does not come in and say, well, if you signed a listing agreement, it's undone. It's a private contract. They don't have authority to do that really anyway, unless you were directly in the lawsuit. But until this gets done, nothing really changes. So the good news is right now, if there's an offer of compensation in your MLS, they have to pay it. It's still the rules right now. Now that is changing, right? We will get to a point where it won't be in there anymore. But just know if you get a pushback from a listing agent who says that, oh, I'm not going to pay you anymore because the settlement said I don't have to, you can say, one, it's not effective, and two, the rules in the MLS still say you have to. Like, screenshot that though, because if a person's going to claim that, right? Yeah. All right. Agents should be able to articulate. This is where we're going to have really good communication with our clients. You need to be able to articulate your value. What is it you're going to do on the listing side, on the buyer side? Because we're going to be talking a lot about commissions with our clients. What are you going to do for your client, and how do you earn your commission? What are the things that have to happen? What are you doing as their value for them? These kind of things. So deep conversations to not just justify, but to explain, to educate the consumer on all of these things. And we're developing classes. I know KW is developing classes. If you haven't done already, KW has already put out a class called Valued Squared, and there's a class next week and 2 in April. It is free to all KW agents. What, Grant? Excellent, excellent. And it's a great class. I haven't taken it myself, but it's about talking about your value. So you're going to want to know that. You're going to want to be able to communicate all of that to your clients. I do have a warning though, a big do not, and that is get good at communicating so that the seller does not feel you are strong-arming them or coercing them into offering a buyer agent compensation. They need to have the facts and how the system works and the value of having that so they can make an informed decision. And after explaining all that, the listing agent says, the seller says, no, I'm not going to pay you more than 3%. I'm not going to offer a buyer agent compensation. Say, cool. Then I'm not going to work for 3%, because somebody's got to show the buyer that doesn't have an agent anymore that won't go and show it because you're not going to pay it. There's no money in it for him. I wouldn't say you're not going to pay. I would say there's no money for that buyer's agent to come and show the property. So who's going to open up the door? You, Mr. Seller? Happy if you want to do it. I don't recommend that you do it. Oh, you want me to do it? So I have to come to every time a buyer wants to see your property. Well, then that's a 4% commission. Oh, the transaction is going to get really ugly because there's not a competent professional representing the buyer that knows how this thing works and how to make things happen. I just went to a 5% commission. Like, you're going to have to get really good at explaining that it's 5%, 6%. We don't set commissions. You all know that. They've always been negotiable. But let's just say you choose to charge 6%. Great, Mr. Seller, I'm just charging you 6%. Whether I share any with the buyer's agent or not, you're paying me 6% because either I'm going to do all the work or I'm going to do half the work and share half my commission. Like, you'll get good at your talking points. I get passionate, so don't listen to me, right? All right. There's a lot to this. We're going to open it up to some questions, but I do want to bring up Mr. Bob Hale, Mr. Gilbert Gonzalez, and Mr. Jeremy Brewer. Forgot your name. Do you guys want to come on up and let's open this up a little bit? I don't know why. I think my presentation got in there twice. That was weird. So let's go to the horror. Okay. All of these slides, by the way, are going to be in the Heritage Toolkit app. By the way, they're already in there. So if you can go to our team meeting section, you can get all the slides, both mine and HAR's. And let's go to the end of his.
Okay. No, it's on the Google Drive, but it's not in there anymore.
She said she refreshed the the slide deck because they added them all in the PowerPoint. There we go.
There we go.
So go way down. Well, yeah, but we're not going to start at the beginning. I want them to go to the bottom.
Right, but we have a slide that Craig wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good, sir.
All right.
Yeah, they're in.
All right, we're gonna get some mics. So as we said a second ago, this is the KW class valued squared that you can sign up as KW agents. It's for free. It does say March 7th, but I know there's one on March 26th. There's 3 dates, one March 26th and then 2 in April, and they're all gonna be on that. Craig, did you want to say more about this?
Here you go.
Okay, I didn't know if you were gonna say more about this or.
Grant is, and we're all pushing this course. This is an online course that Gary Keller, Jason Abrams, and also Jay Papasan that they wrote. They've wrote The One Thing, of course, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. These are some really smart people that I believe are getting ahead of the curve. They're not going to be talking more or less about the NAR settlement, but I think what's more important, I think what y'all want to hear is what's the strategies, right? What's the communication? And I want to leave you one story, which I hope will give you some encouragement that when these guys start talking about, what from the legal aspect, because they're all, hey, you got some of the best attorneys up here that know the 108-page document that they read it. I didn't read it. I've read the Cliff Notes, and I'm sure maybe some of you did read the entire, and good for you. But there's one strategy. I just want to say that there's a couple things that are real important. And I think we didn't say this earlier, that first of all, rules will not define the success of any of you in business or as entrepreneurs. We all have to play by those same rules. These are rules, right? Now, the strategy that you will implement and that you execute on moving forward will define your success.
100%. Absolutely.
And that's what Steve earlier was talking about, that strategies define you. So what I'm going to ask you to do is think of a guy by the name of Candy Cummings. Does anyone know who Candy Cummings is? If you would have read the book on The One Thing, Gary Keller talks about a story of Candy Cummings and what he did for baseball. Take us back to early baseball history, late 1800s. Candy Cummings was a pitcher, and he was outlawed by the National Baseball League because he threw a different type of ball. You ready for this? And this is the deal. If you look at this, when Cummings came on board, he started throwing a pitch called the curveball. It was outlawed. Everyone said what he was doing was illegal. Now, folks, at that time, the only baseball that was thrown was what we call fastball. Today, we have balls like what I think Ryan McDaniels, where are you out there? Ryan was saying, hey, there's a ball called the Effie ball. You ever heard of an Effie curveball, an Effie ball? It's less than a 40-mile-an-hour pitch, and pitchers strike out baseball. Some of the best professional players with a 40-mile-an-hour pitch that it looks like it's just hovering. The knuckleball, the spitball. There's literally 20 different types of balls that are thrown today by pitchers, and it's no longer an outlaw. What I'm getting at right now, you may feel like they just took away your one fastball. But folks, the greatest level of people in this business, we are entrepreneurs. 1.3 million of you are business people. Each and every right have every right to be creative as long as we play by the rules. But it does not define us. The strategies and your new curveball will be found. And it's through the logic and facts that you find opportunity to find successes in this business. Because there's some of you guys are going to come out of this, you're going to make more money than you ever made. There's going to be some of you will come out of here and will not make a commission. You're worried about making 3%. No, some of you are going to make more than 3%. Some of you are going to come out of here and say it was the best thing to ever happen in our industry, because now we got to build skills. We got to be better at communicating our value proposition. We got to be really good at articulating what we do and what we don't do. And I think the biggest word you need to start saying to your clients, no. When they tell you to go show them a property at 8 o'clock at night without a buyer rep, no. You know what the greatest gift that was given to us? No longer can Zillow take those listings that you have, that you work so damn hard for, and you have a person that goes pays on the other side to go show that home because Zillow got that lead. Don't you feel bad about that? Does it make you horrible? They go show your listing, and it's like as if it's their listing. I'm telling you, some of this is going to be the greatest gifts that we've had. Now, right now, you're not feeling it as a blessing. You feel it as a curse. It's not what's happening to you. It's what you do with it that matters. Give it up for these guys, because I'm going to tell you something. There's so much, I guarantee you, being part of Keller Williams, if you can train yourself to open your ears and listen and take in and look for opportunities, there are strategies that are going to come out of this room today and others. They're going to revolutionize this business and are going to give us better fastballs, give us curveballs, knuckleballs. I want to see some spitballs I've never seen before. Let's make it happen. Give it up for these guys.
Okay. So Bob Hale had put together sort of some headlines, and I'm going to let you talk about them, but these are on the commission lawsuit stuff. I'll flip through them as you just want to talk about them, Bob.
Sure. So here is a list of 20, is this working?
No, there we go. All right, now you're good.
Of the 20 some odd lawsuits that will be settled with this. By the way, HAR and SABAR are defendants. And I was thinking about what Craig was talking about, the value. So we have an attorney, and attorneys can charge $60 an hour or $600 an hour. And we hired an attorney to represent us in this case. And he gave us a discount, and we're only paying him $1,100 an hour. But it shows you the value. I mean, we hired him because he is the best, and that's what you want. And if you're the best, you can charge what you want. We got to break away from the pack, as Craig said, and show our value, because your value is unbelievable, without a doubt. So $200 billion is what the damage is in one of the lawsuits. Let me mention too, NAR is kind of getting a bad rap right now, I think. They got sued. They had the unfortunate luck of being sued in Kansas City by an attorney who had been working on this sucker for a long time, invested a ton of money in it. And luck of the draw is the judge you get. And this judge was not pro us. And he decided that this was a per se violation, which means there's no defense. The question is, what are the damages? So it wasn't a real reason lawsuit where you can explain what you do and why we do it. None of that got in. So we almost lost from day one. The sad thing is the jury took an hour and a half to say you owe $1.8 billion.
Yeah.
You treble that, now it's 5.4 billion. So NAR is going to appeal it. They don't have 5.4 billion to put up. They have $1 billion. So they can't appeal it. They couldn't. So the best thing they could do is figure out how to settle it. And I think $400 million settlement, getting not everybody out of it, but all the MLSs and all the associations and virtually all the members, except for the largest brokers. That's a win. That's a win for the industry. It's a win for NAR. It sounds like a lot of money, but paid over 4 years, it's nothing compared to what could have happened. They could have gone into bankruptcy, and that'd be the end of realtorism as we know it. So anyway, $5 billion, 5.4, like actually, go ahead. That's one we're in the Texas lawsuit, but we'll be done now. This is still going on. This is the Baton 2 lawsuit that's brought by home buyers. And those are not, we still have to deal with that. Now in Texas, under a rule, a law, the MLS probably cannot be sued because buyers don't buy the services of the MLS. The realtor does. And so being an indirect purchaser, most states allow the buyer to sue the MLS, but Texas does not. So that's a great benefit. Now, here's the problem. Here's what consumers see every single day of the week. A big legal defeat for realtors, conspiracy to fix prices. There was no conspiracy as we know it, but that makes the headlines and that sells newspapers. Home sellers win $1.8 billion after the jury finds a conspiracy among realtors. After a $1.8 million verdict, the clock is ticking on the 6% commission.
Yeah.
Americans are taxed $60 billion in real estate commissions.
Taxed.
Taxed.
You're taxed at that. It's not a fee for services if it's a tax, right?
And
Makes it sound horrible.
Yeah. And we're talking about the New York Times, the Washington Post,
Fortune.
Wall Street Journal, Fortune, Bloomberg. I mean, it isn't just one, it's every major newspaper and TV station in the country just about. And then this is the other thing, and this is a different case. You know, the DOJ wanted to investigate NAR. They had an agreement that the deal was done. The DOJ wanted to break it. NAR sued to stop them. And NAR won, but in the appellate court, it looks like they may say the DOJ could break the agreement and continue to investigate.
Which is why they're involved in this current settlement, because they probably bring that in and that would go away while they're settling this out. But that's part of the reason this settlement is uncertain, is we have the DOJ involvement with it. Jeremy, thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, I think that the DOJ entered after this loss in the district court, the DOJ started entering appearances into every single one of these cases. There's about 20, like Bob mentioned, there's 25. I think there's about 26 now across the country. Just saying, hey, the plaintiffs got it right. There's some collusion, there's some issues going on. But I think with this settlement, the DOJ hasn't weighed in on it, but if in my opinion, if you listen to the attorney out of Missouri, which is the attorney that was kind of pushing the agreement on that side, he's been in contact with the DOJ ever since he started these cases, and so if you read the tea leaves, it's possible that they have been engaged, and that what the DOJ issued their amicus brief that we talked about a couple weeks ago in the Gonzalez case, they laid out a couple rules, and some of those rules have found their way almost directly verbatim into the current settlement agreement that NAR has. So, I mean, my opinion is I think that they probably were in, but they haven't officially come out and said, hey, yeah, we're good with this, but they haven't come out and said we're against it either.
Yeah. Last headline, realtors reach settlement that will change how Americans buy and sell homes. Nope, they're still going to sign a contract. They're still going to pay money. They're still going to get a loan. These headlines, are designed for clickbait. Unfortunately, they spread misinformation, cause concern and confusion. And that's why we're up here to say this is not the end of the real estate industry, nor is it the end of you getting a really good paycheck for the amount of work that you do, right? It gets back to communicating your value, you understanding your value and being able to communicate that and work with the consumer so they see that and how you're going to alleviate the burdens and stress of this major purchase from their life, that you're going to get them from point A to point B. When y'all come to me, I've seen it, but you go and you hire a really good attorney, or you come to me and I say, here's where we are now and I can get you to the end. Does that not just drop a lot of stress from your life? You're a good attorney, a good mechanic, a good doctor, a good whoever, a good accountant says, and then they say, oh, here's my fee. You might go, that's a bit more than I was hoping it would be, but if it's worth it, you pay it. And that's what we have to do. We have to be that level of professional that when they hear the fee, they go, maybe at times they'll be like, but at the end, you've solved a major problem. You've taken stress off their life and you've made it better for them. And that's what we're in the business to do, is to bring about these dreams and these hopes to fruition. Push it all the way up. It should be on.
There you go. So we did a presentation yesterday at the board, and one of the things that I pointed out, and so if you, and I'm not wearing a tie, so we can get real, right? So how do we end up in this position in the first place? Bob mentioned it earlier in the morning that somebody said, hey, I think I overpaid. They went to an attorney, they told the attorney their story, and he's like, yeah, you probably did overpay. But the real question is, why did that person and why do consumers feel like they were overpaying? And in all reality, it's because there has been for a while a segment of y'all who have not explained what you do and your value. I mean, we've all seen the TikToks lately where like, oh, I'm not going to pay someone, 3% to open up a door. If the only thing that you're doing is opening a door for somebody and that's all they think you do, you don't deserve 3%. And that's just the hardcore truth and reality when it comes down to it. The things that you have to do out of this and the things that you have to are things you probably should have been doing, you really should have been doing for years, which is you should have been explaining to your clients how you get paid and why you're worth every penny you're worth. I have never taken a client on, except for one time, where I did not have a contract with them that at the very beginning, at the front end of the transaction, where they knew how much I was going to charge and I knew how much I was going to get paid. The one time I didn't, it was a nightmare. The client said, I told you you're supposed to do this. And I said, but I don't have we don't have that. And I said, well, you were supposed to pay me this. And he's like, you don't have an agreement that. So it's at the end of the day, it's on you to explain your value to your client. Tell them what you do. Tell them Craig's correct. Tell them why you're worth whatever you think that you're worth. Get them to understand and communicate with that, because what you have for years is a group of people who either didn't do it or didn't do it well enough that the consumer did that they understood. If the consumers generally understood the value of realtor, when they walked in they wouldn't have walked in to talk to an attorney because they felt like they overpaid. And that attorney would be like, oh no, I understand how the realtor could pay. Everybody would know. Yeah. It's not a secret. Tell them why you're worth what you're worth.
Gilbert, do you want to add anything? And then I'll have Bob go, and then I'm going to open it up to questions.
I think the important thing that Jeremy said is on the drive over here, I thought I see a lot of social media posts and it's like, look, I'm at closing. Look, I closed this deal. And I think we need to change our narrative to say, I worked today and I showed this many houses to this one person. I had a really hard day today because I had to negotiate a great deal for someone and I needed to close that. Man, I had a fantastic day today because this, and change that narrative. Like we need to change that we're talking about the closing and talk about everything before, right? Like that's what we need to do, because realtors reach settlement that will change how Americans buy and sell houses. How Americans buy and sell houses is absolutely not changing. How y'all get paid is changing, because now it is no longer in the MLS. It's you talking to each other. That's the only thing that's changed. The listing agent can still have a conversation with the seller and say, do you want to offer compensation? And they can still say yes. The buyer's agent can still get paid from the listing and from the sale of the property. Nothing has changed with the transaction. It's just how y'all communicate. So it is absolutely manageable. Is it change? Yeah, change sucks. And there's a lot of people who are going to say, I really don't want to have to deal with this change. But I keep using the analogy of the realtor who comes in 6 months is not going to know any different. It's going to be the only reality that they know. So they're going to be like, why are y'all complaining? Like, this makes perfect sense to me. Like, this is what I was taught to do. So we're going to have to change our mindset, but it is absolutely achievable and it is nothing to be afraid of.
Bob?
I was going to say, I bought and sold real estate for many, many, many years as a seller and as a buyer. And never once has the realtor told me what they're going to do. Never once. And maybe they thought, well, because I work for you. But I do know they do a tremendous amount because I know them. But they shouldn't. I mean, that's the key. Spend an hour with me telling me all the things you're going to do. I remember 2 years ago, chairman of HAR was telling me he had written about 50 offers for one person because everyone was rejected, everyone, because they had 15 offers at that time. Now he didn't get paid for any of that, zero. But no one knew that. No one knew that. No one knows what you guys do. And you got to tell them in great detail. Now, some years ago at HR, we had a committee. We came up with a list of what a listing and a buyer agent would do. Very extensive. Took it to the board. No way. We don't want to be bound by, what if we don't do all that? So they hit it. And that's the worst thing we could do. Do y'all have a transaction management, platform? Like,
I think we have yes.
yeah, I'm sure you do.
I know y'all all have your own, but
Yeah.
But in most of them, there's a long checklist of all the things you need to do. Just copy that checklist and show them. I mean, if there's something in there you're not gonna do, take it out. But that's a great way to start this sucker.
Phyllis, they sure take that list down. Sorry, I'm not talking.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Greg. Yeah, yeah.
Because attorneys, which is the irony of this is that the attorneys that are making $160 million. What, about 160 million?
Yep. Something about that. Yeah.
The irony of them are making about, what's their commissions, guys? Real quickly. Oh, we can't talk about that? Is that antitrust? So they're making about 20 to 25% of the entire pool of money,
Yeah.
and they're not stopping yet.
Right.
The irony that they're telling us that we violated antitrust and we came and get our measly 6% or 5% or 4%, whatever it is. And yet they're getting 25 to 30% on many of these cases. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Give it up for Thomas J. Henry.
Yeah. Man, I hate attorneys sometimes. All right. Can I get a couple of the staff to run microphones around? Let's go ahead some questions. We do want the questions on mic so that people on Zoom and Facebook can read it, but I'll start right here with Miss Debbie Snelling while we get more mics.
Okay, Garrett, this is for you. Would you tell agents how many days they have to respond to a call, an email, or a text? Because we all need to start cooperating and give feedback and talk to people. I mean,
So there is, Debbie, I know there's a little off topic, but it's also still just good in our industry. TREC has a brand new rule that you are required to respond to any inquiry from your client, an agent on the other side of the transaction, or an unrepresented party in a transaction that you're involved in within 2 calendar days. That's calendar days. Today's Thursday. If you get an inquiry, that means you have to respond by Saturday. The response does not have to be a full answer. It could be simply, hey, I got your text. Let me get back to you. But please communicate. Be good at communication and prompt so you don't get more TREC complaints, because we already have one too many. We're good. They're violating TREC rules, and you can correct them through a TREC complaint. But let's be good people and just do the right thing. I don't know why you wouldn't respond to your own client within 2 days anyway. I don't know why we have to have a rule for this, but here we are. Will you take it to Ron Reyes right there, please?
So I understand what you've been saying about the buyer rep agreement, and that the buyer rep agreement is going to be essentially required all the time. However, my concern is that in the past, buyer rep agreements have been extremely hard to enforce.
Correct.
So is the form going to change to make it easier to enforce, or what do we do about that?
Not really. I mean, because the only real enforcement mechanism of something like that is the threat of litigation. It's a contract. You've signed a contract. So we can't write any contract that says if you're in breach, we automatically get some damages. Like, where's the enforcement of that? That's why we have a court system. So the contract that's written, the buyer's rep that's out there now, is as enforceable as any other contract. And that is the willingness of the agent to go after a client when there's a breach or you're owed that commission, right? And no amount of changes to it are going to change how that system works. We just have to be this is one of the reasons I'm actually glad we're doing the buyer's rep agreement up front. So you have these deep conversations with the client about commissions, and they have a better understanding of their financial obligation to you as their agent to get to the compensation level. And if they're squishy about it, then maybe that's a buyer you don't want to have that you're doing. Just like Craig said, be able to say no. Thoughts, Gilbert?
Can I just add something too on that buyer's rep? Because I think that's the dialogue, and that's going to be the important part, because people aren't comfortable having that conversation. But in the current buyer's rep, it says, if the seller doesn't pay me, you will. Like, isn't that what everyone's afraid of? But that's exactly what it says in there, and that's already what's binding. So it's not that big of a change.
Correct.
It's
Yeah.
not.
but there's no better enforcement mechanism, unfortunately. Vet your buyers. All right, do we have another? Here we go. Josh, you have a question?
Yeah. All right, on the offers of cooperative compensation, they have to be outside of the MLS. Well, we are to use showing time. Why can't we just put that in the showing time instructions?
The settlement agreement prohibits the MLS to facilitate an offer of compensation to any party that uses MLS data. So you wouldn't be able to use a showing time or use a showing service that uses MLS data to power their information to offer that.
Darren, and then we'll go to Monique.
So I'm from Oklahoma, so be patient with me. Does it, the way I'm understanding it is so potentially on July 1st, that if I'm a buyer's agent and I'm wanting to show a property, I need to ask the seller's agent, what is their commission structure to me?
Well, first, you're going to get that buyer's rep agreement signed,
Sure.
explaining the commission. But yes, on each property, you're going to have to determine what that is so that let's say you get a buyer's rep agreement signed at 3% and you call the listing agent and they're only offering 1. You're going to have to reiterate to that buyer at that time. It's like, look, they're offering me 1. You've signed a contract for 3. There's a 2% difference. I'm willing to show you the house. Are you okay with making up that difference? Again, if you've explained your value, if you're coming from that contribution and they know you're worth that, and they have the financial means to do so, it's not going to be a showstopper, right? But we are concerned about buyers that don't have the excess funds, and you're going to have to make a business determination in your life. Can you live on 1% in this one transaction if it goes through, or not, right? But you can't shy away from showing that buyer that home.
And I guess the question will be come July 1st is, are these sellers and the seller agents, are they more than likely going to stick with the traditional 6%? We don't know.
We don't know.
There is no traditional 6%, just to be clear.
yeah.
It's
Thank you, Jeremy.
commissions are
Thank you.
always
Yeah.
negotiable between the client
all
and their
negotiable.
agents.
Yeah. Got the.
We do that in Oklahoma. Keep it in Oklahoma.
Hi, good morning. I'm Monique Slater.
Yeah.
So I do want to ask, so 98% of my clientele is military, and there is a statute that VA buyers cannot pay commissions. Is that going to be addressed?
So the VA buyers cannot finance commissions through the VA loan. A VA buyer could pay commissions, but they can't finance it. So essentially, your process, and it may sound like semantics, but the idea that VA loans won't, or VA buyers won't be able to buy houses or pay commissions is I don't think it's a misnomer. I think the idea is that if you follow the same process, if you look at the same idea now, like a seller makes an offer of compensation, and if a buyer wants, that situation still exists. It just doesn't exist in the MLS. So if that's part of something that your client needs or client wants, I mean, that becomes part of the conversation that you have. Like, I need a new roof.
I've had mine kicked back because I charge a transaction fee. That's a fee. VA buyers are not allowed to pay those fees. So I've had them kicked back where I've had to take that fee off. So if I have a fee of $12,000, because that's my fee, then that's going to get kicked back. How is that being addressed for VA buyers?
There's currently, this settlement agreement doesn't address that. Then I can tell you right now that NAR, I've talked to them and they are lobbying up at the federal level to see if there's a way to address that. And then with regard to this kind of thing, as of today, there isn't anything that addresses that. I would suggest maybe if that's something of interest, contact your congressman or contact your senator to see how that works. But NAR is trying to address that up at the federal level.
Yeah. But that's why it's so Monique, yeah, it's going to get addressed.
Congress is gonna deal with it.
Yeah.
So it may be, it's probably gonna be a shit show for the first 6 months.
It will get addressed. We just don't know. That's why I wanted to stress at the beginning, we are 6 days into this new territory. There's a lot that's going to happen to work out some of these problems. I do see you on the microphone, but I got 2 questions here. Actually, it locked up on me real quick.
Garrett, real quick while you're doing that.
Yeah.
It's what I call unintended consequences. It's like what happened in Georgia right now with the IVF. Something got passed real quick, not realizing all the unintended consequences that go along with it, and it got pulled back. And that's exactly in terms of that VA issue that I expect that's what's going to happen is you've got people putting together these things that don't know anything about how our industry operates and the roles we play. And there's a lot of first-time buyers, VA, minority buyers, underserved buyers that are going to suffer the most because of this. And we're going to see more changes rolling out as a result. Real quick, Garrett, I'm going to ask a question since I've already got the mic. You had talked about lobbying. So what is TREPAC, RPAC? We've got 1.5 million members nationwide. At what point do the associations rally the members the same way we do with political propositions on writing the DOJ, writing our political officials? When is that coming into play?
Talking to me? So as I mentioned, I believe that those activities are currently are ongoing. There's conversations happening. I have no idea if where they're at in the conversation or if there's any conclusion to that, but I know that that's a conversation that's happening at the federal level.
You know, we feel like that is the purpose of NAR and TR is to be an advocacy organization. That is what they are. I think that they are absolutely going to work on that. You know what would help though, is y'all mobilizing to tell them, NAR and TAR, our leadership volunteers, this is important to us. This is my experience. And this is how I think it should change. We do have the money, right? Everyone gives to the PAC and the PAC allows us access into the rooms where we're able to effectuate policy changes, but we also need a voice. And 1 point whatever million realtors speaking up and saying this is hurting buyers and buyers aren't able to achieve their American dream of home ownership. That says a lot. That moves a lot. So I expect our advocacy arms to move us, but I think it's going to take a huge effort from the entire industry to speak up as well. Our website lists all of our volunteers, so I'll make sure that they get the emails.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, back to question. You want to ask a question?
Hi, my name is Shay, and I wanted to first thank you for coming and sharing all your knowledge with us. I do have a question regarding the new rule. So let's say if I have a listing and I already have in my listing agreement that I'm going to get like whatever commission, and then I'm going to give this much to my buyer. You know, social media right now is huge in our industry. So let's say I have a listing and I'm actually, you know, advertising it on social media. Can I actually advertise how much we're going to pay the buyer rep in social media?
Yes, because it's your listing, your social media. You will be able to tell other agents what it is on your website, your social media, whatever. What we're saying can't be done is you and an agent from another broker form a social media channel together, whatever, and start advertising it. That becomes the aggregate. We cannot create an MLS outside of that and do something similar to that. Let me read a couple of questions that we got on Zoom just so they know that we're here too. Can the seller's disclosure be adjusted so the seller's disclosing to the buyer's agent what they're willing to pay? It could be, and that's one of the routes that Texas Realtors go to make that disclosure in there, but it's got to be in the listing and the buyer rep agreement. So it's probably going to be done outside of the seller's disclosure notice, although that might be another place that it gets put. What does this mean for leases? We can no longer put the amount, and do we have to get our percentage from the person leasing or the landlord? Yes, it will no longer be advertised in the MLS how much that lease compensation is. So you're going to have to talk to the listing agent or the landlord about that, and then you'll have to get it in writing. So same thing whether it's buying or leasing on that. So all that's going away on that. There, do you have a microphone here?
Well, first on the leasing, so we have to get a buyer's rep to show a
Yes.
rental.
You're
as
gonna have to
well.
get a buyer tenant rep
Which-
agreement even to show a rental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, my question was, can concessions pay can the buyer use concessions to pay my commission?
Yes, they can. And what I said earlier, the settlement says that the seller concessions cannot be tied directly in the advertisement of concessions to paying it. Like the seller can't say, I'm offering this to pay your buyer's agent. They have to say, I'm offering this much money, and then it becomes part of your negotiation with the listing agent as to where that money is going to be applied.
And if
Absolutely.
my buyer's rep says 3% and the seller isn't paying, can my buyer instruct me to not show houses to them that would require them to pay 3%?
Yes, you're going to want to have that very specifically in writing, and I can always help with that. But yes, but as long as it's buyer driven, yes, they can do that. But that's a conversation for a different day. Letitia, did you have a question on that?
Just wanted to say something. Hi, everybody. I want to remind you all that Keller Williams Heritage, we own the 80% of this town. I mean, the 80% share of this
A little higher
town.
than I thought, but
How powerful this company is. I know this is a big change, but if we are already powerful now, let's embrace the change. Let's have the same conversation with buyers and sellers. And if we talk the same and we walk the same talk, let me tell you, we're gonna become even powerful.
okay.
Even more.
So I know we're running a little over, and one great thing about it is Mr. Bob Hale's come from Houston. President of HAR, he's got some more material. I want to honor your time. This is going to be the thing we did on. There's going to be a lot more conversation about this. Bob has brought some amazing material about what HAR offers you on it. So I'm going to go here, and he can, if you want to stay in the room, he's going to talk to you about what HAR can do. If you need to leave, please do so as quietly as possible, because those that want to stay and listen to some of the member benefits and how HAR is sharing data, HAR and Sabor are sharing data, I want them to be able to go through it. It's a good presentation. And Bob, thank you. But if you need to leave, please do so quietly. But thank you guys very much for all this. Yes, we are sharing data, and I'm going to let you go up and do that. So if you can stay and listen to this, great. But I understand we're also a little over. It's really good stuff. I encourage you to stay.
Yeah, I know. Are we ready?
There you go. You can do that.
Hello? Is that, you hear that? All right, all right. So this is an HAR tool that we're looking to maybe work with San Antonio to provide the same thing to everybody here. So what we did a few years ago, NAR told us you can no longer charge your members for non-essential MLS tools, because that's not fair for them to pay for something they may not want. So the staff drug his feet for 2 years because we were afraid of the member, that we were going to charge her for something they've been getting already. Okay. So we created a bundle of service. We have 53 products now in what's called MLS Platinum. We charge $129 a year voluntary, and they're worth about $4,300 if you bought them individually. So how many of you use Cloud CMA, for example? Nobody? All right. 40% of our members use it. Now, if you got this, you pay $129 and you get Cloud CMA. If you don't get this and you just go buy Cloud CMA yourself, you pay $550. So that shows you this bundling is an incredible value for the membership. And now that we've got a data share with San Antonio, we got your data, you got our data. We can share tools. You can share what you got with our members, and our members can share what we got with you. It's going to really make a dramatic change. We're in the process of doing the same thing with Austin right now, and then we'll do Netris after that. So hopefully by the end of the year, that'll be about 85% of all the listings in Texas will be in one database, which would be great especially for a larger company, without a doubt. Somebody said, when are you going to do Tyler or Lubbock? I said, never. Yeah. And not because we don't like them, but because it's real expensive to do this and it takes months to do it. So we're going to stop with the 4. And if anybody else wanted to play, they could just shut their deal down and join you or join us or join Dallas, whatever. It doesn't make sense to have all these MLSs. All right. So, and then our lockbox work together also. So that's a major thing. You have showing, what's forewarned, we have it. Tremendous benefit. So we do a lot of consumer research, and we have 10,000 Houston consumers who have volunteered to be a part of our research. That they use HR.com, so they're real plugged in. So we send them surveys, we do in-person interviews, and we just did 8 different interviews with about 200 people each. And we came back with the number one thing consumers want, and they really stress this. We want floor plans. You got all these you got 50 beautiful pictures. We have no idea how they lay out in the house. You're halfway there. Get there. So I think in the near future, when you go to take a listing, if you're not going to offer a floor plan, you're not going to get the listing. I think it's just going to be that is the hot topic today, the big deal. Now, the Val, they got mad at us because we won't show them sold prices. They blame us. Oh, it's the realtors holding that data back from us. No, it's the state of Texas that won't make it. So in Houston, every agent, every broker has what's called a virtual office website. And if a consumer signs up as your customer and agrees to the terms, they can see all the sold prices going back 4 years. They can see the history of the listing. They can see a lot of stuff that you can't see just on HR.com because we're not a broker. We can't show that, but you can. So you become the source of the information that the consumer is dying to get hold of. So they love their agent that does this for them. Flood information, that's not an issue here. And then 40% of Houstonians are Hispanic. So that was another big thing. So here's an example of the floor plans. We've gone from 0 floor plans to 1,600 in about a month. I mean, it's catching on very fast. So the 2 sources are Kubicasa and Showing Time. Kubicasa is free to you. Showing Time is free to you. They're both. One is Kubicasa is a black and white flat. I mean, you see everything, but Showing Time is a interactive floor plan. So you can switch from floor 1 to floor 2 to floor 3, and you hover your cursor over it, you click it, and it'll bring up all the photos of that room and in the direction that the photos are being shot, and it'll bring up the virtual tour of that room. So consumers love this. I mean, love it. And with Kubicasa, you do it. You download the software on your phone, you shoot it, then you put that link into your MLS. Okay. So you do the whole thing. With Showing Time, if you use a professional photographer, you call them and they say, I want a Showing Time interactive floor plan when you take my photos. And then they download the software themselves from Showing Time. They do it. They send that data to Showing Time, and then Showing Time overnight creates the floor plan and we have a feed from them to our MLS. So it goes right in. You don't have to do anything. Your only thing you have to do is tell the photographer to do it. And chances are the photographer, if you give them enough business, won't charge you more for this, because they're already there shooting the pictures. They're just doing a little bit more. Okay. That's a virtual office website, so the consumer can see premium, we call it premium content. All they do is, give you you get their name, their email, their phone number, and all that. So it's a lead generation as well. And then here's our flood page. And then we put all of HR.com in Spanish. So that's been a huge benefit to Spanish speaking people that don't speak English. Down payment resource. Do y'all have that? Pretty expensive. We put it off for years and finally did. We found that 89% of all listings in our MLS qualify for some type of down payment assistance. So now if I'm short for my closing, my down payment, there may be a program that fits that property and fits my criteria where I get the money, I don't have to pay it back, and I can close the house, and the realtor makes a transaction and the buyer's in the house. That's a very, very good program. And then this is one where, well, yeah, we pay a lot for that. I mean, it's not that expensive, but it's not inexpensive. A vendor called me one day and said, Bob, I have a deal for you. For $350,000 a year, all of your agents can record the description of their photos. And like, they're not going to do that. Come on. No agent's going to go describe 50 photos on their listing. It's just not going to happen. And I'm not going to pay you $350,000. So 2 days later, our technology department created what's called auto narrative. And so now every listing on HR.com, including yours, there's a button of the description of the listing. You can listen to it. You can read it or listen to it in 12 different languages. Arabic and Mandarin and Spanish, and I mean, all of that. And no human has to do anything. It's all done via computer. Now, we've had, this is the crazy thing. Yeah, you got this on HR.com for your listings. This is relatively new, and consumers have clicked on it and listened 4.6 million times. That's one of the most popular things we've ever done for consumers. And it's something that we would never even thought about if that vendor hadn't called me and told me about it. Yeah. Yeah. And then we didn't provide it, but all of our members pretty much use showing time. And a lot of our members didn't like it for whatever reason. They didn't like the call center. They didn't like this or that. So we created Showing Smart, which is similar, but it's a different product. And about 80% of our members use this. And now about 20% use Showing Time. So we didn't cut Showing Time off. We compete with them and we get along great. And if our member wanted Showing Time, they could have that. If they want Showing Smart, they could have that. So since we did that, we've had 2.6 million showings go through Showing Smart. And the members absolutely love it. Because they created it. The technology guys didn't create it, say, what do you think? They said, what do you want? We'll build it from the ground up. And almost daily, we make some tweak because some members say, oh, if it only did that, we change it. So it's very member driven. And then we've had 3 million downloads of our app by consumers. And last month, the detailed listing, which could be a Houston listing or a San Antonio listing or a Dallas listing, were looked at 37 million times. So it's phenomenal, the amount of consumer engagement on that. And then this is a monthly report we send out every month. This was February. And we compare the number of times listings are looked at on HAR, on Zillow, on Realtor, and Homes.com. So last month, 54% of the listings were looked at on HR.com, 35% on Zillow, 11% on Realtor, and Homes doesn't have enough traffic yet to, they don't want to disclose what theirs is. So it just shows you why members love it, because all those leads, that's 250,000 leads in 1 month to realtors. They don't pay a penny for them. It isn't like Zillow where you pay 40%. There's no fee. So it's a huge, huge benefit. And then this is about, we'll stop here.
Yeah, we're gonna have to stop here.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, give it up for Bob Hale. He really made a day to come over here. Did 2 G meetings with us today. This is great stuff. All of these slides are in our slide deck on our Heritage Toolkit app, so you have access to them all along with my stuff. And Bob, I'll get you my stuff as well. I really appreciate you coming, though. It's been wonderful to have you. All right, guys, we're going to end the meeting now because we're going to flip the room for Ignite to start on that side. Thank you guys very much for your attention. And we're going to all start. We're going to get through this together. You know that. Thank you all.